Shin Kamen Rider. New movie, Hideaki Anno, Shin Kamen Rider. I fucking love Kamen Rider. Kamen Rider. Double. Kamen Rider. 01. Kamen Rider. Vulcan action figure. $300. I spent my life savings on fucking Kamen Rider. I love fucking Kamen Rider! Let me tell you about Kamen Rider Raya, first officially gay Kamen Rider. We saw him in bed with another man. What do you think he was doing? He was having
sex.
And he's got this big Kamen Rider chest, and he goes, it was supposed to be a show with a darker staff, but because of the 2011 news, to give the kids in general Kamen Rider Kuga, much the same thing. He came Let me tell you about the fucking CW's Kamen Rider. You got the Zodiacs, you got the Xenos, there's fucking Kamen Rider guy written against the humans, there's Kamen Rider, this is Kamen Rider Show. Who's that character in Kamen Rider 01? And then there's fucking Saban's Masked Rider in that show. Fucking sucks, man. Gotta see the new movie!
迫る初夏地獄の軍団我らを狙う黒い影世界の平和を守るため Go! Go! Let's go! 輝くマシンライダー
That is like just uphill enough that I'm getting pushed back.
Rider, 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 jump! Rider, kick! Kamen Rider, Kamen Rider, Rider, Rider.
Shin Kamen Rider is the latest film from Hideaki Anno and was released to celebrate the 50th anniversary of Kamen Rider, as well as being the final entry in Anno's sort of Shin series, including Shin Godzilla, Shin Ultraman, and Eva 3.0 plus 1.0. This film retells the iconic story of Takeshi Hongo being abducted by Shocker, imbued with cybernetic enhancements against his will to become Kamen Rider, a half-man, half-grasshopper hybrid who must fight the forces of evil to save the world from total annihilation. Now let's be clear, I am approaching this review both as a fan of Hideaki Anno, maybe not so much his recent work, and as a fan of Kamen Rider. Recent seasons are pretty okay. The first act of this movie is pure dynamite. I'm talking incredible. You are just thrown right into the action, the necessary exposition is just thrown right out of the way. Immediately in this film, you observe the fantastic production design, the really sleek costumes that have a beautiful aesthetic to them that perfectly marries Anno's own sensibilities, as well as the sensibilities of the Kamen Rider franchise. It's great. The first major fight scene here is nothing short of porn for Kamen Rider fans. This is just fan service through and through. So far as even shooting the fight scene with Spider-Og, in the original place that Kamen Rider's fight with Spider-Man took place in the 1971 show. Love it. The cinematography here is great, the locations throughout the film are great, it all just looks fantastic. I think if nothing else, one of the main selling points of Shin Kamen Rider should be the aesthetic. It is gorgeous to look at, it has a sleek look, all of the encounters with the Augs are incredibly fast-paced and varied, even if I do think it gets just a little stale by the time we're fighting the Wasp Aug for the second time in the film. I feel the exposition here is really over-delivered. The concept of prana it's just some bullshit Anno made up for this film. It's essentially the LCL from Eva, you know, it's the life force, the sexual energy that all living beings thrive upon, and it is just over-explained to death. On first watch, the exposition was so fast-paced, I was sure that I was missing something, that I needed a second watch to take it in, so I watched it a second time. And that really solidified the fact that the exposition here is just overdone. The concepts here are not that deep. It feels like, had they been cut back for this film in particular, it would have been just as fine, if not better. It all feels so unnecessary and undercuts the raw emotion of the film when you are just being bombarded by line after line of exposition. And if you want to go all the way out with this very complicated system of energy for the characters, I feel what should have really been done was just turn the fucking thing into like a 5 or 6 episode show, you know, 40 minutes an episode. That would have been great. You know, cancel the fucking idol. HBO, give us Hideaki Anno's SHIN KAMEN Rider series. Some other benefits I can see to making this a mini-series rather than a movie would have been the encounters being paced out a little better. I feel the friendship between Wasp and Ruriko would have felt a lot more natural instead of this informed attribute, which it ends up feeling like in the film's current state. And yeah, man, the second watch was really what solidified this film as just okay for me. The over-explaining of things can really just drag the film to this turgid crawl. And now I'm going to get into spoiler talk. So these are the really major spoilers, so if you don't want the end of the movie ruined, fucking skip to this timestamp. I'll be talking about whether I think this is successful as a Kamen Rider film or not. 3, 2, 1. Okay, you're still here. Alright, let's talk about the main villain, Butterfly Aug, aka Kamen Rider number 0. So now look, I understand introducing Ichimonji in this film. That makes perfect sense. You know, you gotta have Kamen Rider number 2. But to have the main villain be, oh, he's also a Kamen Rider. At that point, that just felt like a kind of a dumb superhero movie cliche. Not to mention, it's a trope we've seen done to death a lot in recent Rider shows, which I'd say the names of, but that would also incidentally spoil those shows, and that's not really something I want to do. But for those of you who have been keeping up with Kamen Rider as a franchise, you'll know that this is very correct, that there are a lot of recent shows where the gimmick has been, the main villain is also a rider. Everyone is a Kamen Rider. So that was a little disappointing. However, I do think the actual emotional conclusion the film reaches from this is very beautiful. Hongo's self-sacrifice is incredibly moving here, and I think is a really fantastic conclusion to his character arc. And it fits in with the spirit of Kamen Rider. For all of its flaws, I think Shin Kamen Rider is incredibly successful at capturing the spirit of Kamen Rider. Despite the darkness of the world, despite its bleakness, Kamen Rider is still a shining beacon of hope for everyone. He defeats the bad guys. He overcomes all odds in his way. This film captures Kamen Rider phenomenally. And that's what I believe is truly important here. Getting across the idea of a character and exposing it to a new generation through an aesthetic they may or may not be familiar with. Overall, I think it's an okay Kamen Rider film. Considering that the standards for Kamen Rider movies is very low, this certainly sits in the upper echelon of those, if nothing else. Anyway, those are my thoughts on Shin Kamen Rider. Good movie.